All of communication is a negotiation. That's what I want to elaborate and explain in this video. When you think about negotiation, you don't think normal communication. You think there's a business negotiation to be had, there's a business endeavor, business goal that has to be fulfilled, and you have to negotiate back and forth with another person. Often it's somebody loses and somebody wins. That's what you think about, right? Now I want you to stop and think about your life right now. I want you to think about your relationships with your children, your relationships with your hubby or your wife or your partner or your lover, your relationships with your friends, your relationships with your colleagues, your relationships with your clients and customers. I want you to think about all of that. I want you to think about all of that getting bigger and better and happier and more fulfilling and expanding and becoming grander. I want you to think about your life becoming bigger. You got that? I want you to think about that. I want you to think about this, that your life stands to become better when you recognize that all of communication is a negotiation. Now, I want to keep this video under 10 minutes. I'm going to become very concise about this. How I figured this out was I am a former professional dominatrix. Now, I recognize that it's not the appropriate term. Nobody knows what a dom is. But everybody has a semblance of what dominatrix is. So I am the male counterpart to that. But essentially, when I took on my clients as a professional dominatrix, I would have a session with them right before I consummated the act, a session called negotiation. And this happens in a lot of businesses. They negotiate, right? And this is what you recognize as negotiation. This is what I recognize as negotiation as well. And in that negotiation, I would format a contract. It was a very long and complicated contract that they would sign because there were a lot of things that I would need their consent, and they would need to sign in the context of the law, giving me permission to provide something, provide a service. And so as I went through, as I gotten more clients, gotten more intuition about what I was providing, I have the philosophy: elegance is the confluence of effectiveness and efficiency. Think about everything in your life which you've become good at, everything in your life that you've endeavored to do, any sport, any activity, even parenthood. The more you do it, the better you become at it. It's because you've become more effective and efficient. And you recognize that some of those things you become very elegant at, because that is the confluence of effectiveness and efficiency. So as I became more effective and efficient in what I did, I eschewed that contract because I gained more intuition about what people wanted, and I gained more intuition about what I wanted to facilitate. I knew more and more of what I wanted to provide. And so I became more efficient, and that contract became a very simple, very short contract. And my negotiation boiled down to my asking the question, what sorts of things are you into? What sorts of things are you not into? What sorts of things are you willing to explore? And from those questions, they would answer. And from that answer, I would know what to facilitate. I would know, based on my intuition about what people liked and wanted from experience, and what I wanted to facilitate that I would enjoy, rather than be miserable about providing a service, because there are things I wouldn't want to do that I had to do as a service. Instead of that, I meld down the two, what they wanted to facilitate, my intuition about that, what I wanted to facilitate, and I had a terrific time. And they had a terrific time because instead of picking from a smorgasbord of things that they would like to probably explore, they wouldn't know exactly what it was. They just knew what they liked intuitively, and then I would provide a service for them that they would probably like to explore, and communicate, hey, would you like to explore this? Or would you not like to explore that? Okay, I see where your edges are. I see where we could play. And so going back, it became more elegant. It became more front in my mind, recognizing that all of communication is actually a negotiation, because my negotiation session boiled down to simply my communicating. And so if I can become more elegant with that process, What else in my communication can I become elegant at? Let me ask you a question. If you could become more elegant in effective, meaning if you can become more effective and efficient, meaning elegant in your communication, what would you need to do to be able to become more elegant in your communication, to become more effective in your communication? And as a result, your relationships with everybody around you becoming better and better and bigger and grander and more fulfilling. Recognize that all of communication is a negotiation. Let me give you an example. If I were to say to somebody, "Hi," what I'm doing is I'm negotiating for their attention. Now, this is not in the context of a relationship which is granted. A relationship which is granted is referred to as a relationship that's granted because each person grants themselves to the other person, therefore inevitably causing the result that each person be taken for granted and therefore feeling taken for granted. But when you go back and you eschew that model, when you go back to the very fundamental of things, when I say hi, what I'm negotiating for is their attention. I want you to remember this always. Negotiate first for their attention. Don't take their attention for granted. Don't take their interest for granted. We're not going to talk about right now that a relationship which you grant yourself to the other person in exchange for their granting themselves to you exclusively is a relationship which inevitably leads to the death knell of loving relationships, which is being and therefore feeling taken for granted. You know that. Let's go back to the very fundamental that every communication that you do has something you want to consummate. So you think about a business negotiation, you think, oh, there's something that has to be done. There's a goal that has to be had. What if in my communication, I don't have a goal? I'm just communicating. Well, you're communicating just to communicate. That is what you want to consummate. What you want to consummate is the intention, communication. Why do you communicate? I want you to think about it. Why do you communicate for no reason? You communicate for no reason to connect, to feel that connection, to feel that empathy, to feel something, to feel a connection with that person, to feel attended to. You want to get their attention. And so get their attention, negotiate for it, but don't take it for granted. Get their attention without taking it for granted. How do you do that? You negotiate for their attention. How do you negotiate for their attention? Do you have to sit down with them? Hey, I would like your attention. No, you simply have to say, become more elegant about it. Effective and efficiency is elegance. And you say, hey. And what you're actually doing is you're negotiating for their attention. You're not taking it for granted. You're waiting. Are they going to reply back? And how are they going to reply back? And what does that mean in the communication? And so they reply back, hello. And then you've gotten their attention. Now that you have your attention, now you can continue communicating. Now, if you don't get their attention, perhaps they're busy. Remember, do not project onto others what you imagine their attention span is or their interest span is. Some people really, really like to keep their communication very partitioned. I'll leave that alone. Some people may not want to communicate in that moment, and so you get their attention, see how they are, and see if they're willing to communicate at that moment. Because just because you're interested, just because you're excited, just because you want to communicate and connect, doesn't mean they particularly are into that or they particularly want to in that very moment in time. So you get their attention, you negotiate for it by saying, okay, if you can't tell intuitively, you can simply ask, is now a good time or are you busy? Negotiation. We'll talk more about that in other videos. If you want to see my course on relationships, by the way, click the link on my bio. If you like this video, click the heart or thumbs up button. Leave a comment below, share your thoughts, and share this with others. Makes the world a better place for all of us. Talk to you next time. Bye-bye.
Give it to me like